Perfect.
Does it say it's recording?
It does?
Yes.
Oh, it's funny, I can't see it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this experiment we're having we're calling it Entering the World of the Work of Art. And we're going to be exploring the idea of aesthetic education and what we call guiding the noticing and reflecting and um, uh, and the inquiry process that goes along with that. So let me get started. My name is Holly Fairbank. I'm the Maxine Green Executive Director of the Maxine Green Institute. And I'm welcoming you here tonight. This is March 4th, 2025. I'm going to ask my colleagues to introduce themselves. Professor Lenihan.
Hi, everyone. So you know me as Rachel Lenihan, and I'm formerly a teacher of English and history in secondary schools in Ireland for many years. And I recently changed position, and now I'm working as a lecturer in teaching, learning, and assessment in the School of Education, University of Limerick. So delighted to be here with you tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Professor Hinchion.
Thank you, Holly. My name is Carmel Hinchion, and like Rachel, I was an English teacher in secondary school, and the job that Rachel is doing, I was doing that job in UL. So, work teaching, learning, and assessment, and English pedagogy. So I'm delighted to be part of the Maxine Green Institute collaboration, and thank you for having me here. And lovely to see Holly and Amanda and all the students.
Yes, great. Thank you. And I'm Professor Gulla.
Hi, thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Amanda Gulla, Professor Emeritus, recently retired from Lehman College and City University of New York. I was the coordinator of the English education program, and I taught creative writing and literature and aesthetic education, and have been on the board of the Maxine Green Institute for a long time. And Holly was my mentor in aesthetic education, and I'm excited to be here.
Great. That's a beginning. I should mention that we established the Maxine Green Institute about 14 years ago now. And when I was still at Lincoln Center Institute, where we developed this pedagogy around Professor Green's philosophy of education. So, and currently I'm teaching aesthetic education at Hunter College at the City of New York. CUNY system. So how would we get started? Perhaps we could get started with Kayla. Would you mind introducing yourself?
My name is Kayla. Can everyone hear me? Yeah.
Good.
you perfect.
Perfect.
I'm studying PE in English in the University of Limerick, and I'm part of an English pedagogy module led by Rachel Lenihan, and I'm really enjoying it so far, and I look forward to the discussion we have today.
Perfect. Thank you, Kayla. And Kate. We have to unmute.
Yes, sorry. My name is Kate Thornton. I'm from Galway in Ireland. Same as Kayla. I'm studying PE and English teaching. And also really excited to see what we do today in this little workshop.
Thanks, Kate. And David.
Hello, my name is David Murphy. My resume isn't quite as long as the lovely teachers we have with us today, but I'm a
Not
third
yet,
year PE and
David.
English student. Not yet, not yet. Same as everyone else here, I'm a third year PE and English student. I'm originally born in Waterford. I'm living in Clare at the moment in Lahinch, and very excited to see what we're doing today.
Thanks, David. And Gavin.
Yeah, hi. I am the same as the rest of them. I'm doing PE and English in third year. I am from Clare, same place as David. And just looking forward to what we're doing.
Thanks, Gavin. And Dante.
It's Dante. I'm a study abroad student from the University of Wisconsin in Eau Claire. I'm studying English education, and yeah, excited for this too.
Good. Nice to see you all here. So my background is in dance originally, and then I became sort of an aesthetic education person expert, as you will, but I'm really interested that you're all partially PE students as well. So we're going to start with a little movement before we get started. So I wonder if everybody could sort of shake out your hands. Can you do that with me? Come on, you can do that. It's faster, 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 faster. Stop. Squeeze them tight. Squeeze your face tight and get it going, and shake out your head a little bit because you're probably a little nervous. Great. Okay. And I know we got started. I always bring movement into my class. I think it's really important to bring your body and your voice into the classroom. And that invites the whole person in, hopefully, as well. I'm hoping that each of you will take the opportunity to speak up. You can either raise your hand or you can use the little hand gesture on your computer if you want to participate, bring in some ideas. This is really an inquiry process, so it's really about me asking questions and guiding the conversation along. And we'll be looking at one painting just to get it really sort of deeply into your observations. I know that I asked you to, or your professor Lenihan asked you to, a little prompt that we made up. And the prompt goes something like this, which is think of a person in your neighborhood, there where you live, that you see often. You don't maybe know them very well, but they're sort of a fixture in your neighborhood, and you see them whether it's selling newspapers or walking their dog or somebody that you see frequently. And I asked you to think about what they might be wearing and where they, what they're doing, what maybe their facial expression or something about the place that you see them in. So that gives us a little sense of who they are. And I'm going to start with, I'm going to model for you. I'm going to see who's willing to start. Is anybody willing to start? Brave soul? Oh, David. I knew it was going to be David. Okay. Can you tell us just show us with your face just a little bit about what this person's character is? Get up nice close to the camera and let's see what this person would look like. Nice. Can anybody describe what that expression is? Kate, can you give me an idea of what that expression is?
He kind of looked, I suppose, a bit disinterested, from what I could see here. Maybe not that engaged, or maybe a little bit zoned out, maybe.
Uh-huh. And Gavin, where's his gaze? Where's he looking?
He's kind of looking straight at you, kind of into your soul, like almost.
Okay.
He doesn't look very approachable, like.
Not approachable, you say. That's interesting. All right, but he's looking straight at you. And Kayla, what would you say what is he thinking, if you can imagine what he might be thinking?
Wait, I can't see David, sorry.
You can't see David?
No.
Oh,
I can
well.
see anyone else. Wait, David, will you just speak and then your thing should come up for me automatically?
Yeah, I was thinking that might be the problem.
Oh yeah,
Well,
no, it's kind of, it's just because I'm doing it on a phone, my laptop's broken.
Oh,
So
okay.
let's see your face.
hit the pose again here.
Yeah, hit it. Okay. So what do I think his expression is?
What's he thinking? What is his expression?
Not very much. I'd say he's just kind of, oh, what will I have for tea later? Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. And Dante, could you tell us just a little bit about where you see this man? Where does this, assume it's a man, where do you see them in your neighborhood?
I'd say walking
Yeah.
down the street and like taking a stroll. You walk by, maybe like give him a nod or say hi, and he just stares right back at you and doesn't say a thing.
Does he have that right, David?
Pretty much, yeah. Well, I work in the shop, and that's where majority of my interactions come from in the day. So it's a particular customer who is well known throughout the community, but doesn't seem to know he's well known. Um, and yeah, I would see him walking down the street. We'll get maybe a nod off him if he remembers me from the shop the multiple
Okay.
times I've served him.
So you see him when you're working and he comes in. And one last question before we look on, what might he be wearing? Like an overcoat or tie? Does he wear a tie? I think David's frozen.
No.
It's a permanent expression. Okay. When everybody on the count of three, could you take the expression of the person that you're thinking of? Okay. So be ready for camera. Everybody on the count of three, just show us your person. 1, 2, 3. Interesting. Wow. Okay. That's a Rachel, what are you noticing?
I'm noticing just the variety of expressions, just how much can be expressed with the face, obviously, but none of them were smiling. I think everybody was a
Hmm.
little bit.
Was there certain I'll move along because we can carry this on, but are there certain parts of the face that, like I noticed, for example, I think it was Kate that had her sort of lip stuck out, sort of or something. That was, can you show it again? No, you can't because she's laughing too much. Just kind it was a particular face. So let's take a look at this painting by a woman named Jordan Casteel. She's a young, becoming quite known painter in New York City. And I'm just going to share this phrase with you now that you've gotten a little warmed up here. Here's the painting. Hopefully this will show. Okay. Okay. Gotta share. Okay, there's the. Okay. Can you all see it all right?
Mhm.
Well enough? Okay, take a little time to look at it for a second. I'll show it as big as I can. And I just want you to, who feels like stepping in and telling me what you see? Kayla, what is it you see? What jumps out at you? What is it did you notice?
Well, I think the writing on the wall, like Harlem not for sale, fight back. So it's
So
like
very first thing.
so it's interesting. Like there's kind of like an oxymoron or juxtaposition there because it kind of looks like he might be selling things on the side of the road, and then in the back it's like Harlem's not for sale. So it's like I don't know. It's just interesting juxtaposition there, while also making a point that like about gentrification of an area. So
Wow.
that's
Very, very.
uh,
So I'm going to recap a little bit about what you just said. It seems the first thing you noticed was Harlem not for sale, fight back. This writing on the wall, you said, and it seems that this man is selling things. And so you found that an interesting juxtaposition between the selling and the not selling. Anybody else want to jump in? Say, tell me what you see, or else I'll call on you, Gavin.
I was just thinking he looks a lot different as for culturally wise. He looks differently dressed to any old man that I'd see back home here. Like I never see them wearing a shirt and like blue jeans. It'd always kind of be dark, like an overcoat and kind of a suit pants and kind of dress shoes.
So something about the way he's dressed strikes you as a little different from what you're used to. Is that what I'm hearing? Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And you say it's an interesting. Sure. What time of year would you say he's dressed for?
all summer.
Summer?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and anything else about the time of day, Gavin, or anything else that we're gathering from this painting? What time of day, or we think it's on the street. You said maybe selling on the street. Is there any sense of the time of day? Can you tell? It's no right
Well, it looks
answer.
kind of like midday maybe because he looks like he's kind of squinting. Kind of the sun probably harsh on his eyes maybe.
Nice. So you're noticing a squint in his eyes. Interesting. Dante, tell me a little bit more about his face, if you would. What else are you noticing about this man's face?
Oh, he looks like a little, I'd say experienced, or like he's been doing this for a while. I can't really tell why.
Something
Um,
about the way he say he looks experienced, and he
I
maybe
mean, he
have
looks like
done
he's
this.
like he has like pretty snazzy shoes and a nice watch, like pretty nice glasses. I'd say his like I don't know, his glassware looks really well done, well made. Like I don't know, I think he has a lot of experience in what he does.
So he looks pretty comfortable, would you say? Is that in what he's doing? Been there. This is not
Yeah.
his first to doing this. He's been doing it. David, what are you seeing here? Tell me something else about what you're noticing.
I think, Holly, we lost David when his screen froze. So I wonder,
Oh,
can you
He said
okay.
he's
see
in the
him?
he said he's in the waiting room there.
Oh, no,
Oh, okay. I better
he might
stop
need
sharing
to.
for a second and go back to see. Oh, I have to admit him. There he goes. He left us, David. So, in the meantime, Kate, what are you noticing here?
For me, I think the first thing I kind of noticed was his facial expression. I know it was mentioned that he might be kind of squinting because of the sun, but for me, I immediately thought that he was kind of going, obviously it's a painting, but almost like, why are you like taking a picture of me? Why are you painting me? Um, there's kind of an accusatory look on his face. Kind of, why are you paying this much attention to me? As Gavin said, he might be doing this for a while, he mightn't be kind of new to sitting outside, and he might think it's very unusual that somebody is giving him so much attention and not being maybe interested in what he's selling, but more how he's presenting or what he looks like.
Very, very thoughtful and very insightful. So you just introduced to us the notion that the painter is looking at him, that there's the painter has caught the attention of this man, and he's looking perhaps straight at the photographer or the painter. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, exactly.
So that brings in this dimension of him being seen and not just us. He knows he's being seen. There's a self-consciousness there. Anything else about his gesture? And maybe David, you can tell his posture and gesture. How does that speak to you?
He has sort of a hunched over demeanor, I suppose. But like, I suppose the stance he's taking with his legs is kind of, he's nearly a bit, he's relaxed, but at the same time, he's not fully comfortable, I wouldn't say. Um, as Kate said, I think he's still selling something, so he needs to appear attentive and ready to kind of jump out of his seat and sell what he has to sell. But at the same time, it's probably a hot day. He's probably still sitting back in his chair a little bit.
Nice. You're really sort of empathizing with him a little bit. You're giving me the sense that you know what it feels like to sit that way. Anybody want to add something? And maybe Kayla, could you say something about more about about his either how he's sitting, or that's giving us any sense of his relationship to this person looking at him, or to us walking down the street? Any other aspect of his posture or the way he's sitting?
It kind of reminds me of like when someone's like in a big city and like there's tourists and it's like, oh, look at that. They're looking at people as if they're a tourist attraction, or as if they're like, like they're like, oh, look at the aesthetic of this man selling something. Let me take a picture and post it on Instagram. But not humanizing them at the same time and not letting them just get on with their job. Like I wouldn't like it if someone took a picture of me working in my part-time job in Supermax. So doing it to him just because he's in a big city and he's one of like millions of people living there and selling stuff, So that's kind of what I see from it.
So you're getting in the position of what he must see all the time, seeing tourists walking by him, and that he's like, don't take me for granted, see my humanity. Is that what you're suggesting? So the artist is seems to have picked up on that. Tell me a little bit about some of the aspects of the painting. You said there's writing on the wall. Is there other things that you see that tell you something about this neighborhood?
Well, I see like crossed out in the back. There's like it looks like a for let sign, or like in the back or the top right hand corner. It kind of looks as if like that building is like maybe shut down. Maybe that was his shop, right? And he couldn't afford because the price in New York keep going up. So he got kicked out of his business, and then basically some, like millionaire, billionaire is going to probably buy it and gentrify the area. So like black owned maybe coffee shops, furniture shops might be replaced by mainstream outlets that can afford to pay to like operate in a city like New York, if this is set in New York. So that's like scratched out the for let sign. So I think that's interesting.
So there seems to be, it's a for let sign, but then somebody wrote over it. Some graffitis on top of it, you're noticing. So it brings up this sense of, and maybe it was even his shop that he set up his stuff in front of his shop as a kind of a resistance. Is that sort of what you're implying? That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Anybody else want to mention something about what else is included in the picture? This man and his face and his somewhat casual outfit and his somewhat relaxed and yet attentive posture. What else would you like to add to what you're seeing here? Gavin, anybody?
I'd say he's not kind of sitting back. He seems to be kind of on edge. Maybe even he's not kind of hunched forward. He's not relaxed.
Mm-hmm. But anything else in the picture that you're noticing, Gavin, that you want to comment
Or
on that has been included?
you could say them vases and stuff. They could be like antiques, basically like they're from the past. So maybe like it's saying he's in the past now as well. You know.
Wow. Say more about that. That's a really interesting concept you just brought up. That the vases seem like they're sort of from the past, you said, and he also now seems like he's in the past. Tell me more about what you mean by that.
Well, like if you say what Kayla was saying about, I mean, maybe it was his shop and he's after getting thrown out of it, let's say, and all that's all his merchandise there, kind of his way of life is in the past, just like the antiques he's selling are from the past, you know.
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful concept that you're really building on each other, sort of expressing empathy, I think, for this man, that he seems maybe a relic from the past. He's being shoved out of his store, maybe his neighborhood. This is, in fact, a Harlem street where the artist captured this image. And that, would you say those things are valuable, those vases? You said they seemed old, maybe you used the word antique.
Well, you'd hope they're valuable, but if you were in keeping with if he got thrown out of his, if we're saying he got thrown out of his shop, they probably aren't, which makes it you kind of empathize with him more, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully he has something good to sell. Dante, do you want to add anything about? He seems to have some baggage underneath the table there. There's a table that you can easily put away and move on at night. And so maybe there's other vases underneath or something else included.
Yeah, I noticed like all the simple, I guess like the easy, like the classic full-out table, is like the classic metal chair, classic plastic Tupperware. It kind of seems like, and then also like the one thing in the bag. I'm sure there's like another vase or something in the bag as well. It all seems like very fast and like a rush out of the building.
Uh-huh. Or he could easily just plop it down at another part of in the neighborhood. You make me think, and I haven't ever thought of this before, but you make me think that everything is fast and movable, but the objects are very fragile.
Mm.
And that strikes me as being sort of a wonderful juxtaposition, I think Kate said earlier, of the fragility of this neighborhood and this place. So great. We've come a long way. I think I'm going to start with that. You folks are really, really insightful and beautiful. Last thing I wanted to ask you was, could you all think of but in your observations, come up with a there's Lisa. Oopsie. With a question that you have. In other words, what time of day is it? So put an observation and make it into a question. Do you want to give it a try? Anybody? And hi, Leisha. Join anytime.
Hello, sorry for being so late.
Hi, Lisa.
Welcome.
Thanks for being here.
Oh, sorry, the train ran over. Really
Well,
sorry.
joining in just in the nick of time. David, could you put an observation you have into a question?
I can certainly try. Just have a second to think about it here. I suppose I wonder who wrote the graffiti, who did the graffiti behind.
Who did the
Was it a
graffiti behind
concerted
him?
effort? Was it
Great.
just someone randomly deciding to do it, or was it someone who,
Yeah.
goes around doing that everywhere?
Good question. Kate, do you have a question?
Yeah, it's just something that I noticed there. I don't know if my eyesight could be completely wrong, but it seems to be his left hand that's facing out towards us. I don't know, is that a ring on his ring finger that
Right
I can
here.
see? Yeah, I'd like to know maybe because the vases are more, I suppose, if we're talking stereotypes here, more feminine. I would like to know maybe who they belong to, if he's married, if they're his wives, if she's still around,
Mm.
maybe something in relation to the wedding ring that seems to be on his finger. And I suppose the more, feminine phases that are on the table, if they were maybe wives or someone's.
That's beautiful that you brought in something about his family that we had not introduced before just by asking that question. Kayla, do you have a question?
I'm just really curious what that white box is.
Down here?
Yeah, I don't really know what's going on with it.
Yeah.
It looks like it could be like a chicken in an ice
Yeah.
cube head.
Yeah. It
And like
does.
saying that sounds ridiculous, but that's what I see.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
really have been fascinated by what that is the entire time.
So there's
Yes.
something ambiguous going on here, yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe the painter really did. I was a little curious. We see this little thing sticking up here. Maybe it's another vase or something. Anybody, we could go further with that, but she's brings to mind, and I want to continue the questions if you have them, of what kind of a painter is this? Is this realistic? Is this abstract? How would you describe this style of painting, if you could at all? Anybody want to give it a shot? Lisa, do you want to give it a shot?
I would probably say like towards realism anyway. Quite
Mm-hmm.
a real life picture, definitely.
Yeah, because you can really tell he's a man, and there's just a little bit of ambiguity, but it's a certain style that this painter has. And last question I have is, if you were to summarize in some way, what is the key idea or maybe key ideas that you see in this painting? And I'm going to go with Gavin, and I can't see him anymore, but I think he's still with us. Gavin, do you have a thought give me an idea, just a key idea here? I haven't told you.
I suppose something like maybe the passage of time or like evolution, kind of.
Nice.
I don't know,
Nice.
time passing on.
In terms of specifically in terms of a neighborhood too, that the changes that go on in the neighborhood, the great key idea, and the way you synthesize that not only with the neighborhood but with the man. Yeah. Anybody else have a thought as to just the key ideas to the painting? What kind of is this? This is not a formal painting. This is, how would you describe these?
There's a message. There's a message in it, isn't there? And it's like, Kate mentioned all the juxtaposition. And if you look at the left-hand side, you have in comparison to the timber board, you have the concrete building that looks kind of a well-to-do. And in front is that ornament, very much in contrast to the kind of the actual brittle glass. So there's like a tension the whole time between this kind of local industry and something bigger happening and people being put out of their work. So it's like to me, the painting spells tension. I just everywhere and fragility.
Interesting. And it speaks to, if I was to take the painting like this and go like that, that would be a different painting.
Yes.
But
yes.
she's included that. So that's really important. That's neat. And yet it's the way she's framed him, he's off to the side. So that seems to be important too. But yet, to me, his leg is right down the middle here. I always look at the middle of a painting. This is his leg that looks very strong still. It's sort of like, but it's cut off, it's only, he's showing us the strength that he still has in his leg. I'm putting that out there, but I don't know whether it's true or not. But wonderful. So I'm going to share with you. This is brilliant. You guys you ladies and gentlemen are really wonderful in the way you're sharing and building off of each other. I'm going to share with you just a tad of meeting the artist. So her name is Jordan Casteel, and she calls this the Glass Man. And telling you the title of that, does that add anything to what you said prior to this? It's called The Glass Man. It's, I guess, it jumps to what you just saying, that the fragility of the man and the neighborhood and the glass, and it's called The Glass Man, and that's how she knows him. Here's a little bit of introduction to her. So let's see if I can get right into this here. It's only about 2 minutes long.
Casteel. I'm a painter living and working in Harlem, New York. This body of work was first shown at Casey Kaplan Gallery here in New York City, and the show was titled The Practice of Freedom, which was in reference to a book by Bell Hooks talking about what the pedagogy for her looks and feels like in the classroom. What does it mean to really build relationships with students that does the deconstruction that I spoke of, that this practice allowed for me to do, but does it more actively in the classroom around deflating the power structures and really seeing all the cultural differences and the personalities and seeing people for who they are and what they bring to the classroom, rather than seeing myself as the sole keeper of knowledge, recognizing that knowledge exists before I even enter the space. And it's everything that the students bring themselves and the history of an environment. It's a real awareness. It's a pedagogy based in awareness, and practicing freedom is allowing the freedom of the students and their development to exist seamlessly, as well as the freedom for me as a professor to see them as they are and meet them where they are, to build upon something more meaningful in the classroom. So after I read Bell Hooks' Practice of Freedom, I was immediately drawn. Within the first 3 pages, I was like, this is exactly what I try to bring in the classroom. It felt really affirming. Then I had been making these paintings. It was the perfect kind of title and language keeper of the things that I'd already been feeling. It allowed me to find a reference point for the things that I had been experiencing in the classroom with my students up until that point.
Hello, my name is Massimiliano Gioni. I'm the artistic director of the museum. Jordan Casteel's paintings are often larger than life, and her work tends to monumentalize the life of individuals, many of them people in her own community, people she has encountered on the streets of Harlem or has encountered in her life, and present them in paintings that have, on one hand, the informality and the liveliness of snapshots, and on the other, the frontality and monumentality almost of ancient portraiture.
Okay. So I'm going to stop it there and go back to saying hello to you all. So that's pretty much as far as we were going to go with this portion of it. And then I wanted to ask, thank you for your insights. And here's our student, last friend. Brilliant observations. Amanda, I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind giving some observations of what you noticed us doing.
Thanks, Holly. I noticed that there was a kind of a building and an interweaving of the questions. So it's never like it's helpful when you go into planning a lesson like this to have a list of questions, but that's always just something for the back pocket. It's really that first question that's a launching pad, and the first question always seems to be some version of what do you notice? And I want to go back to actually the pre-activity where you ask people to think about someone in their neighborhood and to sort of embody those people's faces. And the way that primed people to look at the figure in the painting and his face and body language, I think it kind of it sort of made people a little more cognizant of those things. And I wanted to like jumping ahead to when you made the point about his leg being in the center and how that really centered him and how that was very strong and how different the painting would have been um, without if the background had been cut off and it had just shown him with his glasswares and not the building in the background. A couple of things that were striking is the comment about the writing on the wall and it being a reference to gentrification. So people were looking from the very beginning, not just at the man himself, but the man in his context. And I say that specifically because it was also not just like that he happened to be sitting in this random place with random stuff around him, that it was all about him in his context. And I think that very much came through in the discussion. People were sort of comparing the context of the man in Harlem to their own cultural context. Somebody saying it looks different from the way older men would dress in Ireland. So right away we very much got a sense of his place, and that was a very key important part of the painting. And then after that bit, Holly, you came in with the question of with the observation, actually, you said you introduced the idea that the painter is looking at him. And that sent people deeper into the notion of posture and gesture and how the placement of his hand on his knee, the squinting of his eyes is all very important. And people were wondering what's in the white box, not just because they were curious about that, although certainly I guess they were, but it was always also more about like what further information would that give us about his life? Because then after that, the talk went about uh the empathy towards the figure in the painting, getting a sense of really what it actually feels like to sit outside on a chair like that, the feeling of being looked at by passersby, not just by the artist. And somebody was speculating about how the things that he's selling are those things from his own past. Is he dwelling in the past? Has he lost his home? Or did he have a shop there where he used to be an antique dealer and now he's just selling his wares on the street? Um, and the comment, you make me think everything is fast and very movable, but the glass is very fragile. So there's this juxtaposition of noticing how there's something about that fast-paced New York rhythm that's captured in the painting, even though the man is sitting still, you get the sense that there's this world happening around him, but that he's also grounded to this very fragile glass that you wouldn't be able to move very quickly without having to take a long time to kind of wrap it up and protect it. And talking about the style of the painting and the key. Oh, then you asked about the key idea. So after sort of gathering, and it's interesting to sort of like try to articulate this process, having done it so many times, because it's so different every time and it's so organic. But it's like you collected all of these observations and questions that people had, and then moved into asking people, what is the style of the painting, asking them to sort of speculate about the painting, and then what are key ideas about the painting? So the passage of time or evolution, the tension between the building and the fragility of the glass. And then in the film afterwards, we got more information about how the artist monumentalizes the lives of individuals and how you saw in each painting the person's was surrounded by possessions, and that was a very important part of the image. Nobody was in isolation. They were in the context of either things or people that were very important to them.
Thank you. I'm going to slip in here you don't have to discuss it further. We can bring it up in your class later, but what we call the line of inquiry. This is where I was going when I looked at the painting, and it hits really a lot with what you came up with. How does Jordan Casteel in The Glass Man, the name of the piece, use posture, gaze, location, and words to engage us with the particular character in a transitional moment in a Harlem neighborhood? So I think we kind of embraced a lot of that. And yet I didn't, you came upon it and you brought in new things and went into deeper places. I love the connection with his wedding ring and were this maybe these were his wives' things. All of a sudden, his humanity and his background and his history were of interest to you. And that's to the credit of the painter, I think. She did a beautiful job of bringing this man into our lives. So thank you for that. And Professor Carmel, do you have some connections you wanted to make?
Yeah, thank you, Holly, and thank you for facilitating it so beautifully. And I'm sure, and Amanda giving her kind of observations on what happened. So I was just wondering, I wanted to ask you as students, you're learning to be English teachers, and you're gathering up lots of things around you to help you with understanding that experience. So I was just wondering if you could just give a little bit of feedback in relation to what struck you about what you could use or what happened here about learning to be an English teacher. What opened up for you, or what part of pedagogy kind of struck you around what content you could use or an approach you could use. So would you be able to talk to me about that a little bit? Gavin or David?
Yeah, I think Amanda touched on it earlier when she said about priming you for the activity.
Yeah,
The introductory activity where we had to think of a person
yeah,
to embody. I think that's, as Amanda said, it's very helpful to prime you for the coming activity because you're already in the headspace of thinking about expressions, about posture, about countenance or continence. Um, and that just makes it all the easier to engage
yeah.
with a resource like that, I think.
I love that, David, and I think it's very, very insightful. That sense of, getting somebody ready to receive something, be it any text you work with in terms of your students. How do you get somebody ready to receive a text? And the embodying, it's something we forget sometimes in education, but that idea of you bringing to mind how you can embody something. Did that strike anybody else in terms of of what David said, the embodiment in learning, putting the body and voice, as Holly said, into learning? Anybody else like to make a comment? Kate, you're ready to say
Yeah,
something there?
I think we've kind of been doing a little bit of it already in English ourselves. We're kind of used to that process, but I think what's kind of struck me about today and other times that we've experienced this is centering the student in the learning. So you begin the class or the session or whatever it is with something that the student has brought from their own experience. So it's their life. They're
Yeah,
relating it to their own kind of scenarios, someone they see in their neighborhood. And then you involve a text, an image, a film, whatever it may be, that their learning is so connected then to their own, personal experiences, that they're not just, we'll say, looking at an image such as this one just to analyze, that it's always linked back to their own experiences. And then obviously that kind of creates links to, they understand and appreciate, the use of English then far more because they can see that connection and it's been done for them.
brilliant as well, like David, Kate. That's a really important thing. And that's what Maxine Green, who was the philosopher who is kind of behind the approach that Holly and Amanda talked about. That idea of link it to your own experience is so vital for understanding. Thanks, Kate. Anybody else like to come in relation to learning about being an English teacher from what happened tonight?
Well, I
Kayla?
think using visual as a stimulus
Yeah.
or stimulus for intrigue and like not giving all the students an answer in an image. So like just thinking of the image we just looked at, under the table there was mystery. We didn't really know what was in the box. We didn't really know what was in the bag. So by getting students intrigued, you're kind of setting up a situation where they're wondering what's next. Like, what am I going to learn? They're in that mind space of like not being given all the answers, but trying to find all the answers themselves throughout the lesson.
Yeah, excellent. That it's a kind of it's like the meaning is not handed to you; it's actually created with you. Very good, Kayla. Anybody else like to tell me a little bit about what they felt in terms of the pedagogy or English, the English approach, the approach in English class?
Well, I obviously was a bit late, but
Leisha?
I thought it was really good the way like you let us build off each other.
Yeah.
Like the way we kind of all work together to help each other and keep like progressing onto what we were seeing from the images. That was really good.
Isn't that powerful, Leisha? That idea that by sharing collaboratively, it prompts ideas. So I think that's a lovely way to work. Thanks, Leisha. Maybe we have Owen and Dante might like to just comment, and Gavin, on how it influenced their teaching, how it would influence or what they feel about it.
I think Owen came in, Carmel, just as we pulled the.
Oh, sorry, Owen. You didn't see. Sorry, Owen.
No, but thanks for joining us, Owen.
Okay. Thanks, Owen. Gavin and Dante.
I'll say like what struck me most was like the simplicity of we were just like, I don't know how many questions there were, but it was like 5 questions, and they got like so much discussion going.
Yeah.
And like that discussion like built a whole entire story the kids could work with and think about for the rest of the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
Absolutely. And and this is a beginning into what Holly would say, you might find a line of inquiry that you'll go down, that you won't just always be talking in general. You'll decide, well, maybe I'll use some of this for creative writing. Maybe maybe I'll use this for character development. And Rachel, once Gavin has said something, now I'll hand over to you. Gavin, what did you think about the way it was approached?
I think like it's a good way of showing students kind of similar with poetry. That kind of there's no real one way to look at something. Like everyone can take their own kind of interpretations from it. He could have been just selling something on the side of the street, or he could have been thrown out of the shop. You can kind of take it whichever way you want.
Exactly. So that it's a way to get things to get people thinking. So absolutely, Gavin. Rachel, I'll hand over from your wonderful students to you, and thank you just for answering those questions. To you, Rachel.
Aren't they amazing though? Aren't they
Yeah.
such a great fun? They are, absolutely. This hour of the night now, nearly 10 o'clock, and look at these insights. There was a couple of things, Carmel, just to touch on, and Amanda, Holly, thank you so much for facilitating this like wonderful, like insightful learning experience. And I think the students have given you so much feedback there in terms of the success of it, the simplicity of it, the feeling of being involved. Like that's what I could hear, that you're acknowledging, as Amanda said, it's useful to have some questions in the back pocket, but you probably don't need them. This is an organic process. I think what's really interesting, Holly, that I observed about what you were doing was that active listening and the really kind of helping the students to scaffold and build on each other's answers, because that came with making those connections and pulling all that out, which we all learned to do as teachers. And I thought that was really, really something beautiful, because Leisha captured it there when she said about we were sharing, collaborating, building off each other, so we're creating this little community of learning, which is just so important, I think, in the English classroom. A couple of things I suppose that I wanted to touch on, Carmel and myself, when we were chatting about this and trying to make the connections ourselves between your pedagogy, Holly and Amanda, that you've shared with us tonight, and the pedagogy work we're doing in the English curriculum. One of the things we spoke about, Carmel, the other evening was uncovering rather than covering. That was one of the
Yeah,
one of the
nice.
lines I wrote down, and I think you touched on that tonight there. Gavin, you mentioned there's no one way really to look at something like poetry. It's open to interpretation. And somebody else, Kayla, I think you mentioned about not giving all the answers. Like there's mystery, and that's okay. How did you feel about that actually, Kayla? Like the uncertainty of not knowing what's in the box. Like how does that sit with you?
Well, like I'd like to know what's in the box because I'm invested now. Like, it's very like, this guy is looking right into your soul almost. And it's just you're kind of let in, but not the full way. You don't know everything about him, you just know the surface level. So I just thought it was a really powerful image. So you kind of like, and the way he's standing or the way he's sitting and his posture, you're just intrigued into like the person he is, and it just leaves you wanting to know more.
But I think that idea of finding the answer, like, you hear in your teacher education programs about discovery learning, and about setting students up to kind of find things out themselves. And isn't this exactly what we're doing? We're putting all the kind of conditions in place for the students to really take charge and be centered. And David, you mentioned the bringing the activity. This highlights the importance of planning. We've thought about where this sequence of lessons will fit together. And then Kate, you said about bringing something to class from your personal life, making me kind of see the meaning in my own life and making that connection to high art or to a work of art or to something that, may not be part of my own world, So I think it is. I mean, everything you said there tonight was brilliant stuff. How can I ask two questions, maybe, if you'll indulge me? Carmel mentioned there about, how this painting, could be used as a stimulus or a jumping off point. Where, she mentioned maybe creative writing, maybe something in character development. What do you think? What are your ideas? Can I just share, Holly, Amanda, and Carmel? All of the students here in the last week have stood up in front of everybody else in the room and they have prepared a lesson and they have taught it, and they all took completely different approaches, but they were all so creative. So I have every faith in these young people to be a wonderful next generation of English teachers. So would you like to tell us where you would go with this, or what are the possibilities of bringing visual art into the English classroom?
I'll jump in because this is something I just do a lot. And I would, if this were my class and I were assigning you homework, it would be something we would start in class as a rough draft and continue to do a piece of writing in the voice of the figure in the painting. And then that would be a practice that would carry over to other activities. Like so maybe we would do that with a central character in a novel we're reading as well. But I also want to add the caveat that because we're in English and that's a fancy academic subject, we don't want to say that the arts are the handmaiden of the fancy academic subject. That if we never read a novel in conjunction with that, it would have just as much validity. But it's more like I would want to have a thread of bringing that skill, the empathy and the observation and all of the wonderful richness that you brought into this discussion, to bring it into a piece of writing. And it would be a practice that could be connected to working in various modalities.
That's beautiful, Amanda. Love that.
And Amanda is a poet herself and writes, how do I pronounce it, Amanda? ekphrastic.
Ekphrastic
Poetry.
poetry, which is poems about paintings, basically.
Painting. So
Art.
like, you know, that so that there are all such, I mean, there's also possibilities of how you can work with students in terms of the visual, in terms of poetry writing or the use of images or so there's lots. So Amanda is a poet herself. And I mean, there's also, I mean, don't forget, you know, when you're doing things as well, that because you're PE teachers and you have that kinesthetic strength kind of focus, like dance. And you know, don't make sure you bring your dance into the English classroom. And you know, so anyway, just sorry, Rachel, back to you.
But I just want to add that I always take my students to the museum as well as what we do in the classroom. And one of the things, activity we do in the museum is to focus very closely on one painting. And then I ask them to write a poem. And they always are able to. The poetry comes out of them sort of authentically. And my students are not necessarily English teachers, but they are, I think they bring so much to the painting when they're writing the poetry, even more than in just the discussion. And I felt, just as a comment to, we have to stop now, but as a comment to your students, Rachel, I felt like you've already brought them so much to that place of poetry. And I literally said to myself, what you people have brought forward tonight was indeed gave me the chills. There was some poetic, empathetic giving of yourself to this painting, which I think doesn't happen organically. It takes a while for that to happen. So kudos to you for bringing your students forward like that. So thank you. This has been a real pleasure to meet you all. And gosh, I think we need to stop there. Any final thoughts before we go? And it's bedtime for you all.
I interrupted Rachel's question, which was anything else that you thought about and how you would use, where you would use it. Sorry.
And I completely thanks, Carmel, and I completely accept Amanda's point about, you know, the art. It's not secondary either, and we do have a long tradition in Ireland, I suppose, of the written text. So but our curricula now are really pushing, and I think our students know that as well. You know, we're working more with visual art, and we're bringing, you know, the performance and drama. All of that is kind of really being brought into the classrooms. So I'd just be interested to know where you might take this and how you could integrate it. Any
We'd
ideas?
love to know in future. We'd love to know how you work with your classes and how you bring the arts into your classroom.
David?
I think just as a stimulus, it works really, really well, just on a basic level. I think it feels like a logical jumping off point to do creative writing from that. I mean, from the answers from some of my classmates here, we basically created a story already. We created his background. We created maybe a motivation for him to be selling his wares. We created many motivations. So I think it just really makes sense as a stimulus for jumping off, whether it's a poem or a story or a short play or anything. It just works really well as a starting off point, I think.
Thank you. Brilliant.
Or just pure description, say, you know, purely descriptive writing is also, you know, a visual can be really helpful in helping you to notice deeply, to stop and attend and notice.
Yeah, and I think we're always in such a rush, aren't we, as teachers, to kind of cover and get through things and meet curricular goals and have I ticked off all of my learning outcomes. But I think what a pedagogy like this is really teaching us about slowing it down, dwelling in the text, pausing, giving it the time it deserves, and kind of seeing what the rewards are, what speaks to us and what comes to us. So
I like what Casteel herself, Jordan said about the bell hooks text, that it was enabled her to see what she tried to do with her paintings was to get closer to each of the individuals in her classroom. She is also a professor, and that's something that's really, you have to get out of the way sometimes to look closely, as you said, actively listen to your students and actively meet them halfway so that they have they reveal themselves to you in a safe place. So good luck to you all in your future teaching. And thank you so much. I'll say good
Thank
night.
you.
It's
Thank
so
you
great
so
meeting
much.
you all.
It's
And
great.
good luck with everything.
Good
Thanks
luck.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
Thank
you.
you.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Thanks for being here. Good night.
Good night. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye.
Good night. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Night, Gavin, Dante.
As we're alone again.
Well done, Holly.
I'm
Well
going to
That was
done.
stop the
great.
recording here.
Now you were so inviting to them.